Hey, YouTube world. And a good happy morning to you. And guess what? That's right. I want to take a minute to let you know that I am all over the web. And if you're keeping up, then you know this by now. And if you're really keeping up, then you've checked me out there by now. So go on and hit that subscribe button so you can know what I'm doing here as well as what I'm doing there. And if you subscribe, then you will be notified if you hit that bell every time I make a new video. Guys, if you're keeping up, then you know I make at least 1 to 2 videos a day. Now, today I want to talk about government programs. I want to talk about the public school system and what's going on out there, because I haven't had a donkey in that barn for years. But I want to tell you that my girls did start out in the public school system, and I found out that it's really a different world than what it was, because my girls went to public school in 3 different states. And I tell you what, they went in New Orleans, Louisiana, Sundown, New York, and then in St. Louis, Missouri. And I want to tell you, government-funded programs, which are your schools, majority of them are government-funded. They are brainwashing institutes. They will tell you when, what, and how you are going to learn something. And if that doesn't work for you, then shame on you. Now, ever since this No Child Left Behind bullcrap came along, they have decided that no child will be left behind because it is socially unacceptable. Therefore, if you have a child that can't read, can't comprehend, can't add, can't figure out change from a dollar bill, or doesn't know their ass from a hole in the ground, that's okay. We're going to pass them because we don't want them to be made fun of, because it's not good for their psyche. And eventually, in the end, you have this child that has absolutely not a clue as to what's going on around them, but they will be shoveled off into a world when they graduate the 12th grade, not having a damn clue. This child will not even be able to flip hamburgers at McDonald's unless someone reads and explains the job application to them, because they don't have a clue. Now, let me tell you something. I decided years and years ago to, about almost 20 years ago now, like 18 years ago, to homeschool my children. When I found out you can homeschool a child here in the great state of Missouri, I thought, oh my gods, that's for me. That is what I have to do, because I have to get my children out of this brainwashing institute. And don't tell me it's not a brainwashing institute, you people who think, oh my God, public school's the greatest thing since sliced bread. You only think that because it's a flippin' free daycare, and you get to send your kids over there, and they're doing what you're not, which is raising your kids. Because let's face it, nowadays the majority of people expect the school system to raise, feed, discipline, and educate their children, because they're not doing this at home. Let's face it. I mean, I know teachers, because my husband's parents, both of them, his mom and his dad, were teachers. One was a private school teacher and one was a public school teacher here in the great state of Missouri, and they both have horror stories. But let me tell you, I have heard it all. I mean, I have heard where parents will absolutely come up there and berate the teacher because the student, they took the student's phone. Well, maybe if the student didn't have a goddamn phone at school, they wouldn't have to take them. But, you know, your sorry ass as a parent wouldn't understand that because you think little Johnny needs a flipping phone at school. Who the hell is he gonna call? He's at school, supposed to be getting an education, which apparently you yourself don't have, but that's a whole nother story, because I'm going to talk about and stay on subject here about talking about government programs. So let me tell you, it's been about close to 20 years since I've had a horse in that barn. And I'm going to tell you, when I made the decision to pull my children out of these government-funded programs, it was not a snap decision. So if you decide to do that, please note, it is not a snap decision. You will want to educate yourself on laws. You will want to educate yourself on expectations, as far as from yourself, as far as teaching, as far as how you're going to go about teaching, what kind of curriculum you want to have, what kind of example you want to have for your children, and what your school schedule is going to be, what your school day is going to be, and how you're going to run this class. Are you going to do online classes? Are you going to solely do, manual classes, which means you teaching? How many hours will you be doing this? You definitely want to educate yourself on the laws. And let me tell you something. When I pulled my children out of school, the government did not like this. And let me tell you something. When you pull a butt out of the public school system, because they get paid for asses in the seat, okay? And when you pull asses out of those seats, then the school no longer gets funded for this, and they tend to get upset. Because here's the deal. Here's how this works. The school gets a grant for the amount of students in that school. And so when you remove students from their dollar bills, then they tend to get upset. And at that point, they call Child Protective Services because, oh my God, we're so concerned about the child being educated, the loss of children's educational, So let me just tell you, here in the great state of Missouri, if Child Protective Services shows up at your door asking you questions about the child's education, politely shut the door in their face. Tell them to have a nice day and shut the door, because here, now, I don't know if you're not in Missouri, then you may have a different laws, so make sure you check your laws. But here in the great state of Missouri, that government program has nothing to do with the other government program. And let me tell you, the Children's Protective Services, or DFS, or CPS, or whatever you call them, the Child Protective Services is a branch of the government, and they have absolutely nada, zero, zilch, nothing to do with the educational aspect of a child's development. They are only to check upon the child's well-being, physical, mental, and whatever. They have absolutely not a goddamn thing to do with the educational aspect. Now, if you have a DFS worker show up at your door, which is Division of Family Services, show up at your door with a representative of the Board of Education, fine. You have every right to talk to one without the other. Yes, you do. You also have every right to shut your door if they do not have a subpoena in their hand, or any other government document or court document stating that you have to talk to them or you have to let them in. So feel free to shut the door in their face and let them worry about the legal paperwork and aspect of it, because you do not have to. But again, I will state that when you decide to, and now it is so much easier, I want to tell you, it's so much easier nowadays, because if you decide to homeschool, there are so many online resources available to you that truly weren't available to me when I first started homeschooling. So all of my classes were done manually. And I have to say, my children accepted it well. And my oldest daughter went on to get her GED, and my youngest daughter went on to have a great job, and she's got 2 kids. And so, I'm very proud of my youngest daughter, who is got a son and a daughter. And as far as my oldest daughter, I am very proud of her. She's got a son, and just things worked out really great for them. I kind of feel bad that I had to expose them to the public school system, because it is a brainwashing institute, and anyone who thinks it's not, well, kudos to you. But let me tell you, think about it like this. They tell your children how, what, where they're going to learn something. They tell your children when they're going to eat and what they're going to eat. They tell your children where they're going to sit, when they're going to go to the bathroom. And they do this all in the name of, we're preparing them for real life. Seriously? On what job do they tell you what you're going to eat on your lunch break? On what job do they tell you when you're going to go to the bathroom? I mean, seriously? I know on most jobs, I guess most minimum wage jobs, when you're flipping hamburgers or whatever, and I'm not downing people that flip hamburgers, they tell you you can only go to the bathroom on certain breaks, and okay, that's great. But as for me and my husband, we both have careers, and so my husband is a stationary engineer, and when he's got to go to the bathroom, he goes to the bathroom. It's not a scheduled thing. And me, myself, I work from home, so when I have to go to the bathroom, I go to the bathroom. It's not a scheduled thing, but okay. Nobody comes along and tells my husband or myself what we're going to eat on our lunch break. Now, generally, lunch break is 45 minutes to an hour in the real world. Your child gets a 25 to 30-minute lunch break at school. So, and they sit your children in rows, and you're staring all day at the back of someone's head, and okay, whatever. I've never had a job where I'm staring at the back of someone's head, but that's public school. But anyway, like I said, I don't have a donkey in that race. And that is a a government funded program that tells these people how they're going to teach these children. And they have all these conflict resolutions and counselors and, all this bull crap, because now children are emotionally whatever going into school. So now they have to, the teachers and the counselors have to be licensed, certified, whatever, in not only educating your child, but mentally dealing, emotionally, mental health wise, dealing with your child. Because again, parents are not parenting their child, and they are sending their children off to these institutes to literally be raised and educated in every aspect of the spectrum. I mean, people are looking at the public schools to discipline, educate, and religiously round off their children. And I want to tell you, the government loves this, because the more you depend on a government program, the more they love it, because the more your state gets for their grants. So if they have 3,000 kids, and I'm just throwing out a number, it's not a fact, it's not a statement, it's not a statistic, so don't quote that. It's just a number I'm making up. So if they've got 3,000 kids in a school, then they're getting grants for that. They're getting money for that. And if you pull out your children from that dollar sign, it's an issue for that school, because it affects every aspect of that school. It affects the lunch program, the library program, the music program, the art program. It affects all these aspects of this one entity. So when you do that, people start to notice, people get upset, and people will knock on your door. And they will try to verify, are you sure you're ready for it? You don't have to answer their questions. But I will tell you that if you're going to homeschool, it is not an overnight decision. It is not something you want to take lightly, because you are talking about the educational development of your children. And now you are responsible for moving these children forward and making them productive members of society. So it's not something you want to take lightly. Speaking of government programs in other areas other than the school, food stamps and government housing and rental assistance and light bill assistance and all these programs that are meant to keep us dependent on the government. See, here's what people don't get. We cannot shut down the government, overthrow the government, do away with the government, abolish the government, because the government has ways to make your undereducated ass very, very dependent upon them. And as long as you're dependent upon them, they get money and you only get 10% of it. Know that. And when they say they have no more, that's bullshit. What they mean is they have no more to give you, because they're going to keep their cut. Know that. They are definitely going to keep their cut, and you are going to only get so much of that. Now, when you get your cut, you are expected to do whatever you want with it. And here's the thing. They don't teach you how to use food stamps because so many of you feel like you're so entitled that nobody's going to tell you what to do with that. And that's great, because the government funded public education didn't teach you how to make groceries. And so the government funded food stamp program's not going to teach you how to make groceries. You don't have a clue. You truly have no clue as to how to make groceries. So you go make groceries and you and your family eat great for 2 weeks. And then 2 weeks out of the month, you eat, oh my God, you've got Oreos, you've got name brand steak, you've got name brand chips, you've got name brand soda. Y'all are high on the hog, living good, life is great, you've got name brand cereal, yeah. And then 2 weeks into it, y'all are hungry eating mayonnaise sandwiches because you've got 2 weeks before you get more food stamps. And the sad part is everyone in your family is overweight and the government's funding it. Now, here's the other issue. The government is also funding your medical expenses, so you can afford to be overweight. Again, the government sets you up to be independent so they can control every aspect of your life. Now, let me take a stab in the dark here. You're living under government funding housing, government funded food program, and government funded medical. Gee, it must be nice to have someone else tell you where you can live and how much food you can have and what kind of medical treatment you're going to get and where you're going to get that medical treatment. Because here's the thing. Not all doctors, clinics, and medical advisors will take Medicaid. So you're pretty much dictated to where and what you're going to get. Sound familiar? Sound kind of like your public school system when they tell you where, when, what, and how? No person left behind, right? Well, that's just great until they threaten to close the government, until they threaten to pull your food stamps out from under you. Because here's the thing. They have graciously given you food stamps, housing, and medical, and your life is good until the shit starts getting rocky. It starts getting rocky. And you've got a president that comes in and talks about taking the food stamps, and then, oh my God, how are we going to eat? How am I going to feed my 7 kids? Well, dumbass, they have you so hooked and so dependent upon their government programs and every aspect, because you know what? They taught you well in school. They taught you what they were going to teach you. They taught you how you were going to do it, and they taught you when and where you were going to do it. So congratulations. But nobody's going to tell you nothing, huh? Because you're grown. Okay, well, have fun with that. Now, most people who are on what they call low-income assistance, their children are eligible for free lunch in school. And that program is available to these kids free of charge. And then the other kids have to pay. And so if you don't pay, and your child's lunch account should fall short, they either shame your child or deny your child the chance to eat. Now, I don't have a horse in that barn, but I guarantee you that if some donkey was going to punish my child with food, I would have an issue with that, because they're supposed to be up to date in the mental aspect of, handling a child. Don't you know you're not supposed to use food as a punishment? Because ergo, you are teaching these children to have eating disorders of some sort. And when you teach a child to self-discipline with the lack of food, or you're using food as a tool, yeah, all you so-called mental health trained, early childhood, or whatever it is you call it in these public schools, when you are mentally trained in the mental health of children, go on and look that up and comment below about what that is called, as far as using food as a teaching tool, using food as a reward or a discipline or a punishment. Because sounds like to me you're setting up the perfect storm of an eating disorder. But nobody wants to think about that. Nobody wants to look at that. As well as no one wants to look at, the total dysfunction of the public school system. Because why, fix something that they claim isn't broken? Well, I hate to tell you this, but it is broken. But nobody wants to address that issue because, it's government funded. And as long as it's government funded, we're going to act like it's the greatest thing since sliced bread, because, hey, it's free daycare. It's free daycare for all these people who are getting government housing, government cheese, government medical, and they get to sit on their ass all day and watch Dr. Phil and Moray while their kids are off at school for 8 hours a day, getting they're free government funded shit. So, that is what it is. But here's the thing. When you get ready to make a change, and I do want to comment a little bit and go into bringing your kids home for homeschooling, anyone who's interested. Let me tell you something. I've homeschooled my boys for 17 years. 17 years. I have, my son has never been in a public school, not once, not ever. However, they have been in events. They have been in different events with, like I've said before in other videos, they have been in events with public school as well as private school children. So, they are socialized. So don't, oh my God, they don't socialize. Nah, we don't. People at homeschool, we don't throw our kids in a basement and slide them a slice of toast under the door. We don't lock our kids up. We educate our kids in many different areas that the public schools do not. Because public schools do not have home economics anymore. And my kids were taught from very young how to cook, clean, and fend for themselves, take care of themselves. They were taught how to write checks. They were taught how to manage money. They were taught that, you can rent or buy when it comes to a living dwelling. And so many different aspects they were taught that you're just not taught in the public school system anymore. They were also taught how to sew. They were taught how to do things with wood. They were taught how to do things with tools. They were taught how to use guns. They were taught how to use pocket knives. So they are as well-rounded as city country boys can be. But I do want to talk about homeschooling, like I said, for a minute, because if you make that decision to homeschool, like I did so many years ago, it is not a wake up one morning, go rip your kids out of school deal. It is not. Let me tell you, it is a full-time job. So this is not something you can do if you're not at home. If you are a single working parent, if your kids are older, you may be able to pull this off. But when my kids were younger, it was not something I would have been able to do had it not been for my husband working outside of the home. His income paid for the bills and all that, and it allowed me to be at-home mother that could spend every waking moment with my children and educating them. Because, see, public schools are 8 hours a day. Homeschooling is 24/7 because everything becomes a learning, teachable moment when you homeschool, especially if you homeschool young kids, because you can wake up in the morning at 7 o'clock, and most public schools don't start until 8:30, 9 o'clock, somewhere around there. But you are in the kitchen at 6:30, 7 o'clock making breakfast. Home economics, because you're teaching your kids how to cook. When you start a load of laundry, you're teaching them how to separate clothes. If you separate clothes, how much bleach to use, what water level to use, how to start, the washer, how much soap to put in there, how much clothes to put. You don't want to overload the machine. So you're taking the time to teach your kids all of this stuff, and it is teachable moments, and you want to have an open dialogue with your kids. My kids come and tell me everything. Some things I wish they'd keep to themselves. But, it is not just go snatch your kids out of school. We're going to do it this way. You have to figure out what kind of curriculum you're going to use. Are you going to be the teacher? Are you going to bring in a friend? Are you going to online? Because now that's an option. You can do online schooling. What kind of programs and things and places are you going to supplement their being around people their own age with, as far as now we did things like with our girls, they did the Girl Scouts. They hated it. I'm not even going to sit here and try to buck it up. Oh, the Girl Scouts is great. Nah. It may be for some. My girls absolutely hated it. They did it for about 2 or 3 months, and then we said, okay, because see, here's the thing. When my kids did something, I made them do it for a minute, because you never know, oh, I hate this, and then, oh man, this is great. It's like they start out hating a biscuit, and by the time they take a second bite, it's the greatest thing in the world. So my kids did Girl Scouts, if I remember right, about 3 or 4 months, and then they just absolutely hated it. It was annoying. They said they were treated like crap, and so I just said finally okay, and I let them out of that. But they always went to the park, and they did do the Girl Scouts, and they had friends in the neighborhood that went to public school, even though they didn't. And then they were involved in other things. So they were well versed in having friends their own age, and my boys as well. My boys have done Boy Scouts over the years. They have done activities at the Y. They have done activities at our local church. And so they are involved with children who are public school as well as private school. And so you want to make sure that they are going to be around kids that are their own age, because even though my children will come and tell me just about everything, it's just about. They need kids and people their own age to talk to the same way we do. I mean, I don't run tell my kids, oh, blah, 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 the same way they don't come tell me blah, blah, blah. So having someone to talk to your own age is always a good thing. So, because you want to have someone that can relate to what you're talking about, So don't make that decision as a snap decision. You want to make sure that you take the time to figure out your curriculum. Is this actually for you? And you want to make sure that you definitely have a way for them to still be around people that are their age. As well as, can you financially afford to do this? Because let me tell you, it can get expensive homeschooling, more than it was for public schooling. And you've got no one to help you out with that. Like if your kids go to school and they don't have a box of crayons, then the teacher will step in and go, here, I've got a couple of class crayons that you can use. Well, when you're at home, if you ain't got no crayons, you ain't got no crayons, because you are the class. So, it's definitely not something you want to snap decision to. You want to make sure that it is something that will benefit the child as well as you, and that it is something that can connect. Now, I'll tell you, I had, when I first started homeschooling, I homeschooled 2 children, and the other one stayed in public school just because it was beneficial to that child. So, each child is an individual. So, and before you just snatch your child out of school, discuss this option with them to see where they stand on it as well. If they're old enough to have an informed, intelligent decision on this. I mean, if they're in kindergarten, if they're 7, if they're 5 through 7, they may not be able to give you a informed decision or an intelligent conversation about it. But if they're 8, 9, 10, then you can have an age-appropriate conversation. And this may be the greatest thing since sliced bread. And there are many, many different avenues of educating your children. You're not just stuck to one program. So keep that in mind as well. But again, with any government funded program, when you pull an ass out of the seat, it could become an issue. So be careful with that as well. I'm going to go ahead and wrap this one up because this one is getting kind of lengthy, and I don't want to do an hour-long video that nobody's going to watch. So, you know, if you're interested in homeschooling, comment below and I'll tell you what I know. Because like I said, I'm about 20 years deep into doing this. So if you've got questions on how to get started, or if you've got questions on how to merge your kids back into public school, I also know a little bit about that. If you want to know the laws in your area, please do not comment asking me the laws in your area. Feel free to look that up on any Google or any other internet site, or speak to homeschooling representatives in your area, because I am not versed in the laws in all the states, in all areas, and I only know the laws in my state and in my area. So with that, guys, I'm going to let you know I can be found all over the web, as you should know by now. So go on and give it that thumbs up, hit that bell, and every time I make a video, you'll be notified. Have a good one.